As I told the live audience, and I will repeat now for the recording, for the VOD, America has a lot of really genuinely great friends. We have a wonderful relationship with Canada, to the point that some of my fondest memories throughout my life came from the very inexpensive vacation that Michiganders can take. For those of us that live in Michigan, and a lot of folks that live in the northern part of New York, it's easy peasy to travel in your car to another country. And for reasons that will probably depress me to look too far into, American just pop culture is a lot more chill with Canada than it is with Mexico. So, a lot of my fondest memories are from like popping over to Windsor. When I drive to New York to visit my sister-in-law's family, who are sweet enough that they are worth visiting, despite not actually being blood relations at all, I drive through Canada. It's actually faster to use the old Queens Highway there than it is to navigate a slightly more circuitous route in the U.S. The point is, we're two peas in a pod. When we play hockey in the United States, there's really only two countries that gives us any pause at all when it comes to who's going to be the best in the world. It's Russia and Canada. And I personally don't like Russia. So it's the only friendly rivalry we have with hockey is with Canada. When we go to war, we know there will be Canadians at our side. And I hope it's known that it goes the other way as well. Anybody suicidal enough to attack Canada would do so knowing that they would be picking a fight with Canada and the United States. In some ways, our relationship is ideal as two countries. In 2003, a terrible flaw in how we deal with each other was exposed. In 2003, the United States committed to a war in Iraq which spread to Afghanistan and became a 20-year monstrosity. And who we consider to be our closest allies stuck with us the whole way. It was touching at first, and I thank you for that, even though I'm about to ask you not to do it again. Because looking back, we were not getting into a war that needed to be fought. In fact, what we were doing, what has haunted me my entire adult life, what has shaped my worldview through grief and regret and guilt, what we were doing was massacring innocent people. We were learning, the whole world, to be fair, was learning the new playbook for weakening a nation. One right-wing extremist group from a militarily weak nation does a attack on the civilian population of a right-wing extremist government, goading that right-wing extremist government to an overreaction that ultimately does not deal with the initial problem or creates more of the initial problem. That's what happened to us in 2001, and it metastasized by 2003. Now Israel is going through the exact same thing. The United States, we're not being very good friends. If we were better friends to Israel, we would not tell them you can do no wrong. We would tell them, be careful, you will regret what you're doing right now. This is Benjamin Netanyahu, who, just to add insult to injury, spoke in front of Congress on my representative's birthday. He's currently engaged in a genocide of Palestinians. The excuse he's using is the Hamas attack from October 7th. No denial here. Hamas ordered the word, I suppose, would be evil. An evil attack on civilians that was carried out on October 7th. Sort of like how the World Trade Center attack was evil. But Benjamin Netanyahu is also an evil man. He has no interest in justice. He has no interest in the safety of his people. Most importantly, he has no interest in the lives of Palestinians. He's massacring civilians. Most of the world recognizes that right now, including about 130 members of Congress who did not attend the speech. That's not enough. He should not have been invited here, as though he's another regular politician from around the world. He does not deserve applause. The people who are applauding him either don't understand the severity of what he is doing, the evil that he is doing, or they're willing to lie about it in order to hold on to power. Either way, they should not be in that room. Nobody there except for one, my representative, should be in that room. My representative, Rashida Tlaib, who came in on her birthday and held up a sign, which I will show you a little bit later on. I want to play a little bit of his speech because I want you to understand how this rhetoric works so that you can recognize it when you see it. And then, Canada, I have a request for you.
Members of Congress, I now have the high privilege and distinct honor of presenting to you His Excellency Benjamin Netanyahu, Prime Minister of Israel.
Just so you know, in case you didn't, that's Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House, leader of Republicans in the House of Representatives, traitor to decency. Fast forwarding through the nonsense. All of this is a disgrace.
Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, Senator Ben Cardin, Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer,
Disgrace.
Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, Senators, members of Congress, distinguished guests. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank you for giving me the profound honor of addressing this great citadel of democracy for the fourth time.
Nope. Even past.
We meet today at a crossroads of history. Our world
That's true.
is in upheaval. In the Middle East, Iran's axis of terror confronts America, Israel, and our Arab friends. This is not a clash of civilizations. It's a clash between barbarism and civilization.
True. True. Although he will tell you that the barbarians are the innocent people he's massacring. No, the barbarian is right there. The see you next Tuesday talking to Congress. Also, quick to point out what's happening right now. He's attacking Palestine. That's what's happening. But he turns and says there's an axis of evil. There's a bunch of other countries, you know, other brown countries. You need us there to fight them. You need us there to do your killing for you. Telling us that the killing is in our best interest, so we better let him do it. You might say that if that was the case, or if you just wanted to do some killing, which he does, so he can steal land. He's exactly what Vladimir Putin is. That's it. Kill the people who are on the land you want to occupy so you can have it. It is as old as countries, that tendency. The only thing that's really changed is he's got to come up here in front of cameras and convince us regular folks that there's a reason for it beyond wanting to steal their land. You need to hear this speech so you can hear what lies sound like. I will explain to you, just like I have so far, what the lies are and how you can recognize them. A great way to tell if somebody is lying to you is if they're there to talk about one thing and they start by framing it in a way that is deceptive, in a way that is not about the thing you came to talk about. In this case, he's here to talk about what he is doing to Palestine, what he is doing to Gaza. But he frames it by saying, oh, there's a lot of bad brown countries over there. Big applause.
It's a clash between those who glorify death and those who sanctify life.
Anybody who's not Netanyahu.
For the forces of civilization to triumph, America and Israel must stand together.
Pause. Look at that front row. You recognize those punks? We got Fetterman, we got Kirsten Sinema, and Joe Manchin. Right in the front row there. You can tell by the candy pattern dress, I guess, that Sinema's wearing. I would say don't vote for any of them. I realize Fetterman is a Democrat. I realize we need to utterly destroy the Republican Party in the upcoming election. I would still say don't vote for Fetterman. Take that loss. Hope that through honesty we gain enough votes across the board. But we don't need people dragging down the good name of the Democratic Party. We don't need murderers, frankly, which John Fetterman is. He's complicit in murder. Everybody there, I will brag again. Everybody there except for my representative. Everybody clapping like trained seals right now is complicit in murder. They are aiding in murder. All of them. If you see a face there, know that you should not vote for them.
Because when we stand together, something very simple happens. We win, they lose.
And they stand again.
And my friends, I came to assure you today of one thing. We will win.
Very vague so far.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Let's just actually pause that. You saw all that clapping they were doing, right? Okay. Why? It doesn't seem strange that they're so psyched about this? It's because they know it's in question. They're being performative. But why do they have to be performative? Because they can't have you stopping and thinking for a moment there's any nuance to this at all. Because if you look at the nuance, if you actually stop and think for just 5 minutes, let me correct that. Just 5 seconds. For example, why do you have to kill 100,000 civilians to do what you're trying to do? How many people did you lose on October 7th? How many have you killed that had nothing to do with this? Oh, many, many times more? Many times more. Well, maybe what you're doing is evil. As evil, one might argue, as the initial attack.
Like December 7th, 1941, and September 11th, 2001, October 7th is a day that will forever live in infamy. It was the Jewish holiday of Simchat Torah. It began as a perfect day, not a cloud in the sky. Thousands of young Israelis were celebrating at an outdoor music festival. And suddenly, at 6:29 a.m., as children were still sleeping soundly in their beds in the towns and kibbutzim next to Gaza, suddenly heaven turned into hell. 3,000 Hamas terrorists stormed into Israel. They butchered 1,200 people from 41 countries, including 39 Americans. Proportionately, compared to our population size, that's like 20 9/11s in one day. And these monsters, they raped women, they beheaded men, they burned babies alive, they killed parents in front of their...
All right. I'm not going to stand around and defend Hamas, because they are not worthy of defense. What I will do, however, is insist upon the truth. What he's saying, these are all things he does not know, because we have not been able to find evidence of this. The burning of the babies, that's all stuff that's designed to get you angry enough to not be rational. You're wondering, why does he say this thing when it's enough of an offense, enough of a cause for, I'll even argue, military action, for Hamas to have attacked and killed civilians? Why does he have to make up something? Because what he wants to do in response to the attack that actually did happen requires you to not think about it. Requires you to think they're all just animals. They must all be slaughtered. He wants you thinking like that, this punk, because he is an animal. He does deserve to be in a cage. We should put him in one. And frankly, anybody that's assisted him. Because at this level, they do know what's going on. And to do the kind of killing he has done of civilians requires lying to you. That ought to be a crime. As it so happens, international courts think it's a crime. The United States ought to get on board with that.
Children and children in front of their parents. They dragged 255 people, both living and dead, into the dark dungeons of Gaza. Israel has already brought home 135 of these hostages, including 7 who were freed in daring rescue operations.
Hold on.
One of those.
I want to point out, he said 7 that were freed during rescue operations, meaning 123 of them were rescued by other means. Those rescue operations killed hostages. So, we learned that by negotiating, we get back 123 of them. Nobody dies. However, by doing a rescue operation, you get back 7 and some die. If you keep going through the rest of the hostages in the manner that Israel would prefer, many more hostages will die. Set aside whether or not it gives you half a chub to picture brown people exploding under mortar shells. And start by just looking at what is most important. The return of the hostages? Is that step number 1? For sorting this thing out, we get the hostages home. Well, we shouldn't do it the way Israel wants to. Because that gets people killed. But look at how he framed it. First, the number you want to hear. 130 hostages are back. We got them back. 7 of which were using that method where we kill about 20,000 innocent people first. The people were already clapping by the time he added that little bit in. Our leaders cannot be this dense. They cannot be allowed to be this dense. They are willfully this dense. They know. And if they don't know, they've had the opportunity to know. Because you and I have the opportunity to know, and we don't get classified briefings. They know. They are lying. The people in that room are lying to their constituents. And if you get frustrated that people around you don't understand the broad strokes of what's happening, there it is. Don't support those punks.
Freed hostages, Noor Gamani, is here in the gallery, sitting near my wife Sarah. On the morning.
I'm fast forwarding through this nonsense.
On the morning of October 7th, the entire world saw Noah's look of desperation. Daughter Noah, one
I'm jumping ahead.
I think it's one of the most moving things. When Eliyahu Bibas promised him this.
Here's what I want to show you before we leave, because I don't want to show you all of Netanyahu's bullshit. I want to get to the part where he says, they blew up an ammo dump.
Gaza will soon return to active duty as a commander of a tank company.
Way to go, protesters.
My friends, defeating our brutal enemies requires both courage and clarity. Clarity begins by knowing the difference between good and evil.
Yeah.
Yet incredibly, many anti-Israel protesters, many choose to stand with evil.
Yeah, let's just let him say his dumb.
They stand with Hamas.
Boom, right there. All right. There's a major lie. You will keep hearing about this. Do not let people conflate Hamas and Palestine or Palestinians. Imagine if we got bombed in the United States when Trump was in office. Or try this, let me try this again. Imagine the United States bombed somebody while Trump was in office. And people went out and protested a counterattack against us that was killing American citizens. And the person who was whining about the counterattack said they stand with Trump, suddenly making all American citizens responsible for Trump. That would actually be truer for us than it is for the Palestinians. Palestinians haven't had a chance to choose new leaders in 17 years. And the last time they did, Benjamin Netanyahu put his thumb on the scale to put Hamas in power. It's a lie. Why is he lying? The same problem I have with Tucker Carlson. Same problem I have with Sean Hannity. It's the same problem I have with every Republican politician and most centrist Dems. If what they're saying is good, if what they're saying is something that people ought to agree with, why do they have to lie about it? Because what they're saying is not good. What they're saying is not something people will agree with. What they want to do is not for the benefit of most people. So they must lie to you. And that ought to be treated as a crime.
They stand with rapists and murderers. They stand with people who came into the kibbutzim, democratic state of Israel, and the terrorist thugs of Hamas. We recently learned from the National Security Director, U.S. Director of National Intelligence, that Iran is funding and promoting anti-Israel protests in America. They want to disrupt America. So these protesters burn American flags even on the 4th of July. And I wish to salute the fraternity brothers at the University of North Carolina who protected the American flag against these.
Note that those fraternity brothers also said a bunch of racially charged stuff.
All we know,
I'm jumping ahead.
Iran is funding the anti-Israel protests that are going on. Let's see, they're talking about. They couldn't bring themselves to condemn the calls for the genocide of Jews.
There are no calls for the genocide of Jews, at least not widespread that I'm aware of. They had to conflate Zionism or anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism. Israel put out a statement essentially saying anybody that is anti-Zionist, which, hey, I am, is also anti-Semitic. I am not. So that they can say things like what Netanyahu just said. there's thousands of people all over calling for an end to Jews. No. There's thousands of people all over calling for an end to a massacre. If I can't find it, I'll move on quickly.
Whenever and wherever we see 40,000 aid trucks to enter Gaza, that's 500,000 tons of food, and that's more.
He is starving them. I'm going to try jumping ahead real quick. Let's see.
Than any military in history, and beyond what it happens to non-combatants' casualties in the history of urban warfare. And you want to know where it's low? Despite all the lies you've heard,
let's hear this.
The war in Gaza has one of the lowest ratios of combatants to non-combatants casualties in the history of urban warfare.
That is an astonishing lie. It's one of those things where he's just trying to lie so big that you can't begin to get your mind around the lie. It's like those Nigerian prince emails where they would be misspelled intentionally so that people who weren't going to be easy targets would immediately see what was wrong with it and just ignore them. That's what's supposed to be happening here. That's what Netanyahu's trying to do. What a ludicrous thing to say. What's the reasoning he'll use when he says that? First of all, let me tell you what the truth is. The truth is the opposite of what he just said. He said the ratio of combatants to non-combatants is one of the best in history. The opposite. He is slaughtering non-combatants. His forces are targeting non-combatants. And when they slaughter them, I've seen footage of snipers essentially making a game out of gunning down children. Not an exaggeration. Seen Israeli snipers making a game out of gunning down children. You shoot one, and his shell-shocked friend doesn't even run. Takes a couple of steps. Shoot him too. I've seen Israeli Defense Force trying to bury the bodies of civilians with construction equipment. I could go on and on. I've seen a pregnant mother gunned down. I've seen hospitals blown up. And what Benjamin Netanyahu then says, he takes anybody who is a male, who is over the age of 10, and calls that a combatant. Any body that is too mutilated to see what it was before the mortar hit, before the bombs fell, before the tank shell burst them into a red mist. They say, oh, that was a combatant. Oh, was it a pregnant mother? Okay. But you can't tell. It's all red goo, right? Okay, that was two combatants. That's what they do. This person who does this, who treats human lives like chips in a game, he's talking to my country's leaders right now. And those leaders are applauding him.
And you want to know where it's lowest in Gaza? It's lowest in Rafah. In Rafah. Remember what so many people said? If Israel goes into Rafah, there'll be thousands, maybe even tens of thousands of civilians killed. Well, last week, I went into Rafah. I visited our troops as they finished fighting Hamas's remaining terrorist battalions. I asked the commander there, how many terrorists did you take out in Rafah? He gave me an exact number, 1,203. I asked him, how many civilians were killed? He said,
Remember what I just told you. How many terrorists did you kill? As in how many people were mulched too badly to be identified anything other than as carbon-based life at one point. How many boys over the age of 10 did you slaughter? How many vague outlines of a shadow through a window across the street did you fire a tank shell into? And the number that he was given, 1,203. I wonder how many of them actually were holding guns. I think probably, knowing the courage of the Israeli Defense Force, pretty close to none.
Minister, practically none. With the exception...
Practically none. So what he wants you... We're going to pause right there. He says practically none. And he wants you, in your heart, to hear none. I mean, practically none. All right, what's the exception?
Of a single incident where shrapnel...
So not the exception of a single person, but a single incident. As in, the media will hear about this in about a week. Let me prep you ahead of time so you think you already know what the story is. This little incident, with the exception of an incident.
From a bomb hit a Hamas weapons depot.
They say shrapnel from a bomb, meaning we didn't directly target this thing, is what we will tell you. And then in 2 months, an investigation sifting through the rubble will determine, oh, you did target this building. But it'll be 2 months later. And we'll be busy with the next horrors. And we won't be able to keep track of it. But right now, you're supposed to believe practically nobody died. And there was one incident, not one death, one event, which you'll hear about, but you haven't heard about it yet, so I'm breaking it to you now. Just one little incident where accidentally, sort of to the side of what we were aiming at, a building full of people got killed. But wait. It must have been an evil building. Tell us why this building was evil.
And unintentionally killed 24 people? The answer is practically none. Essentially, where shrapnel from a bomb hit a Hamas weapons depot and unintentionally...
Oh, it was a Hamas weapons depot. Based off everything you've heard, can you start to understand what we're going to find out about this building? If it was a high school, by their definitions of what they are doing, they could call that a Hamas weapons depot. There's a lot of males of military age in that building. And, there's a lot of room for storage in that building. We all know that military-age males have weapons, so it was a depot for weapons. Shrapnel hit it. We weren't even aiming at that building. Does it sound ridiculous? Does it sound like I'm making a mountain out of a molehill? Folks, these are the stories we've been coming across. This is the rhetoric Netanyahu uses. This is why I hate this person. This is why International Criminal Court is going after him, wants him arrested. This is why it's not okay for him to be speaking to Congress, because he does lie like this. We cannot take him at his word. And the language he's using, I'm laying it out for you here and now. It is intentionally vague. It is intentionally misleading. And he wraps it again by saying,
Intentionally killed 24 people? The answer is practically none.
Which he wants you to take as practically none. How many people did you kill? Over 1,200. Was there any issues? We killed 24 civilians. Okay. We're going to say that we didn't mean to hit that building. We're going to say that that building was a weapons depot. We have to acknowledge that the people who died there were not Hamas, even by our loose definitions. They call anybody who is a male over the age of 10 Hamas. Which means when we pull the broken bodies out of the rubble of the building that they were calling a weapons depot, we know they won't be males over the age of 10. That's who the United States invited to speak in front of our leaders. You don't need to hear more from this guy. It is a shame that we had to hear anything at all. Canada, I have a request for you. First of all, remember 9/11. Remember the tragic 20 years that followed. We need your guidance as much as we need your friendship. We need your input as much as we need to know that you'll be there when we are in the right. International Criminal Court wants Netanyahu behind bars. So do I. So does basically every American who understands what is actually happening, who has had one of Netanyahu's speeches clarified with the truth. Don't let us keep getting away with this. We need international pressure. It's not enough. It's not enough for Trudeau to give a speech that lightly tut-tuts Netanyahu. We need social pressure. We need you guys, Canada, to help wake us up. Now, there's folks here in the U.S. who are trying our damnedest. But we live in a bubble that you are uniquely positioned to pierce. Not an accident that we're so ignorant of all these things. That's done intentionally to us. That is a crime being done to us, your old pal Americans. I hear the civilized world complaining all the time that Americans are so ignorant. Americans are so selfish. Americans have no idea what's going on. Yes. Help us, mother. Next time that the Florida Panthers want to play hockey with you, say no. No. We're not going to play a game with you right now, America. Right now, you're participating in a genocide. I won't have it. You need some people on your team to say, I'm not going to play the Americans. Is that the end of my hockey career? I hope not. I'll play games in Canada. But my hockey career is not as important as a little kid's life. We need you to refuse state visits. We need your politicians to refuse to attend functions that Americans are going to be at. And for that to happen, Elaine, Nina, Doug, all my Canadian friends, we need you to talk to your leaders. We need you to talk to your sports personalities, your celebrities. Get involved and understand that you're not being a bad friend by objecting to our bad behavior. You're being a true friend. That's what you can do. You can make better neighbors out of us. I'm sorry, genuinely, that the U.S. population was so easy to dupe, but we've been duped. You've seen it happen before. So help us help ourselves. Give us some social consequences for doing something as foul as inviting Benjamin Netanyahu to speak in Congress as though he doesn't belong in a prison cell.